I'm Shannon Pfohman, and I'm a project director at AEIDL, and I will be moderating today's webinar. So as we wait for a few more participants to be joining us to the logistical matters, I'd just like to remind you to please mute your microphone when you're not speaking, and to also let you know that the session will be recorded. If you'd like to contribute, feel free to raise your hand or write in the chat to let us know that you have some questions or input that you'd like to share. We will be monitoring the chat, so we will do our best to ensure that you are heard. So if we can move to the next slide. I wanted to just let you know how heavy loaded our agenda is. I shouldn't say it in that way, because we're quite pleased with the rich speakers that we have, and the launch of today's new thematic community. Well, it's the third webinar since the launch of our new thematic community, and you can see from the agenda the different level of speakers that we have, with Delia Bonsignore from DG REGIO, the program manager, speaking about efforts to support and community-led energy initiatives. And then we have presentations from two different projects that have been implementing initiatives that are community-led projects in effort to respond to the objectives of the Green Deal and to contribute to more sustainable energy solutions. We will also have some time for question and answers, and our final closing will be completed by Claire Jordan, our Managing Director at AEIDL. So before we pass the floor to our representative from the European Commission, I'd like to invite the participants to complete one question in the Mentimeter, because our goal is for this to be also a participatory approach. So if you see in the chat, there should be a link, but you can also scan the QR code to get to this specific question. And our colleagues will be changing the slides as well so that we can see the Mentimeter question, which is essentially, who's in the room today? We'd like to know what describes your work. What words would you say to define your role? And because this is an open poll, we don't expect detailed answers, but just a quick question regarding that. And when I tried to complete it, my title didn't fit. So you can be creative with your responses. We're just curious to know who's on the call with us. We had 70 participants register. We haven't quite reached that number, but can we move to the question? So we see some people who've completed the first slide. Do you see in the chat the Mentimeter? There we go. Now we have a few more participants. While we complete that, I can also give you some information about AEIDL and the event that we're hosting today. So essentially, for those who are not yet familiar, AEIDL is the European Association for Innovation and Local Development. We're a Brussels-based association that is fostering community-led innovation to revitalize local communities across Europe. And we have initiated this new thematic community on environment and climate as a way to exchange experiences and practices with strategic partners, and also to build the place-based initiatives and give them space so that we can exchange and build on the learning and capacities from those experiences. And this is being carried out in the realm of ELIF, which I've already mentioned, the European Local Innovation Forum. And today's webinar is our third event so far within this series. So when it comes to this first question, I've given you a little bit more time to complete it. We see a bit more detail about who's in the room today. We have policy advisors, project directors, legal advisors, capacity building experts, in particular from REScoop.eu, project officers, consultancies, sustainability experts, grid experts, and climate environmental experts. So that just gives you an idea who's here. So with that, we can close the slide. We'll come back to the Mentometer after the presentations. But I'd like to now pass the floor to our first expert, Ms. Delia Bonsignore, the Program Manager of DG REGIO. Delia, you are a Program Manager, as I've said, working on Interreg programs, which are cross-border cooperation and EU internal borders, in DG REGIO, standing for Regional and Urban Policy in the European Commission. You have also been working on the development of the Handbook on Cross-Border Energy Communities, and you're working on the fields of disaster risk management, climate, and renewable energy. And you've also contributed to stakeholders and citizens' engagement through the Border Focal Point Network and its activities, such as the Beyond Borders Breakfast Debate Series. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the floor to you to tell us more about the cohesion policy.
Many thanks, Shannon. Dear all, good afternoon. It is really a pleasure to be here with you today to walk you through cohesion policy and Interreg support to community-led energy projects, such as energy communities, for instance. Today, I will firstly provide you with an overview on cohesion policy and its support, indeed, to renewable energy-related interventions. And secondly, we will speak about Interreg and cooperation in this field. And lastly, I will give you an overview of the actions that we are implementing to further support community-led energy projects. Next slide, please. All right, so cohesion policy, for those who don't know, is the European Union policy for regional and urban development, and it provides support to make our regions more innovative, more sustainable, more connected, and more inclusive by financing interventions along 5 cohesion policy objectives. And among these objectives, cohesion policy supports investments in renewable energy, as you can see in this slide, through its policy objective 2.2 on renewable energy with a planned budget allocation of 8.3 billion euro ERDF and cohesion funds at the moment, which includes support for energy communities as well. Furthermore, it supports investments on energy efficiency and on smart energy systems. Furthermore, to support your member states and regions to make better use of cohesion policy investments under this policy objective 2 for a greener Europe, DG REGIO developed the Cohesion for Transitions Community of Practice. This community of practice is open to managing authorities, but also to intermediate bodies, regional and local authorities, and stakeholders that are involved in cohesion policy objective 2 implementation. The support offered goes within working groups. So there is a working group on energy, another one on climate, and another one on environment. And in this group, in these groups, members are working on specific actions to help overcome challenges, indeed, in PO2 implementation. And one action that I would like to mention to you today that is being developed in the working group for energy is about developing a guidance document that is aimed to support managing authorities in designing public financing calls for energy communities, and then broader projects that tackle energy poverty, so that you have a bit of an example of what is tackled through this community practice. C4T also provides technical assistance. So I wanted to flag to you today that there is a new call open until 17 November 2025 that it covers all the specific objectives here in the slide. So all those related to energy. So I invite you to visit the website. I left the links in the last slide, so you will be able to access this information so that you can have a look at the call and see whether this is of interest for you. Next slide, please. Now let's move to Interreg. European Territorial Cooperation is also called Interreg, and this is one of the 2 objectives of a cohesion policy. So we are always in the cohesion policy family of funds, and it aims at strengthening cooperation among EU regions and at enhancing European integration and cohesion. Together with the managing authorities in the member states, as you can see, we implement 86 Interreg programs in 4 different cooperation dimensions. At cross-border level, this is proximity cooperation. So it's programs that are implemented in border regions that are literally adjacent to each other, so next to each other. Then we have programs at transnational level in bigger cooperation areas. So you can imagine here the Danube River Basin, for instance, and also at interregional level. We also have, as you can see, a strand that is dedicated to outermost regions. And all of these with a budget of 10 billion euro ERDF for the 2021-2027 programming period. Next slide, please. So as I said, Interreg forms part of cohesion policy, and as such, it supports all cohesion policy objectives, and hence it allows for the same type of investment to support cooperation in the fields of renewable energy, in this case with a planned budget of 230 million euro ERDF at the moment, energy efficiency and also smart energy systems. Working in a cooperation framework offers specific opportunities, of course, but it also poses specific challenges that are linked indeed to the cross-border environment in which we operate. Just to give you an example, this can be legal and administrative differences among member states, for instance. This is what we call the border obstacles. And sometimes this makes it more difficult to cooperate. So given these peculiarities, we are providing additional support. So we have the funding instrument, which is Interreg, and then we have the border focal point team in DG REGIO that implement specific actions in different fields to further support local actors that want to engage into cooperation activities on the ground. This we do through knowledge production. So we do studies and we produce knowledge in specific fields. We also go into piloting cases and we do knowledge sharing through the border focal point network, to which I really invite you to subscribe to stay informed on all our activities. I left the link also in the slide, so you will be able to access this later. And hence, since community-led energy initiatives at cross-border level can pose different challenges, we are working closely on the topic on energy communities and generally on actions to support community-led energy projects. And I will give you some examples. Next slide, please. So voilà, in this slide, you can see a bit of actions that we do to further support community-led energy projects at DG REGIO. The C4C, the Communities for Climate Pilot Action, this is an action that surely you know very well, so I will not go into details, just to flag it ended before summer. It supported 50 local community-led projects in climate action in 11 member states, and 13 of these projects were dedicated to energy in areas such as development of renewable energy communities, but also integrated territorial approaches to energy transition, energy democracy and citizens empowerment, and projects addressing energy poverty. Another action that is currently being implemented is managed by the Emilia-Romagna region and DG REGIO, and it is supporting the development of energy communities in the 5 Western Balkan countries here mentioned in the slide. And as part of our work on cross-border cooperation, we recently published an handbook on cross-border energy communities that indeed is available online. And as a follow-up, so apart from the knowledge production to provide further support to local stakeholders, we also launched a call for pilots on cross-border energy communities. This is now open for applications. The deadline is 21st November 2025. And next slide, please. And today I would like to zoom in into initiatives given their specificities and peculiarities, which are namely the 2 actions that we are developing and implementing in the realm of cross-border energy communities. So as I said, in the first place, we produce knowledge on energy communities, and this comes through the handbook. That is really a tool that is meant to support citizens and local actors in border regions in strengthening their own capacity to produce and consume local renewable energy. In fact, the handbook provides border communities with information that will help them to set up cross-border energy projects, taking indeed into account their complex environment. You have to imagine difference of languages, different laws, administrations, and regulations, just to name a few. And in doing so, the handbook addresses questions such as what is meant by cross-border energy community in the first place, and what are the forms of cooperation possible, what are their benefits, and also are there existing cases and how can they be replicable in other EU cross-border regions. And as part of the handbook, we also try to identify and understand what are the obstacles to cross-border cooperation in this field and how can they be solved. So all of this information you will find in the handbook. The information provided is divided into 7 key building blocks. As you can see here in the picture in the slide, and this includes legal forms, stakeholders engagement, need assessment, but also governance framework and financial strategies. And for each of these 7 building blocks, different options are presented. So to support local actors in the first place in conceptualizing and then designing their cross-border energy community project step by step and also based on their local context and needs. The handbook also provides good practice examples that come from the analysis indeed of the existing cases at EU level that we identified. And lastly, I wanted to mention also the annex to the handbook, which is quite relevant. It's called the Border Fishes, and it provides specific information related to each border context. Of course, working in a border context will be different than working in another one, because you will have to deal with different administrative procedures, with different regulatory frameworks. And so we analyzed these contexts and provided it in the handbook. So this is a good starting point. Next slide, please. So as I said, we developed the knowledge. Now we wanted to provide further support, and this is why we launched the call for pilots on cross-border energy communities with the aim to select seven pilot actions. This initiative is coordinated by MOT, IBR, with the support of REScoop.eu on behalf of DG REGIO of the European Commission. These 7 pilot actions selected, which will receive a grant of €15,000 each, and technical support, which includes dedicated workshops, technical assistance, and webinars. As I already mentioned, the call is now open, so I really invite you to visit the website and to keep in mind that deadline for applications is 21st of November 2025. So this is approaching. There is still time, but it's approaching. So I invite you to consult all the relevant links that you can find in the next slide, please. And hope to see many of you also applying to this interesting funding opportunity. I thank you very much for your attention, and I wish you a good continuation of this webinar today. Many thanks.
Thanks so much, Delia. And of course, people attending and also within the network will be very interested in this open call for participation. I can imagine even some of the speakers might be interested. They also are representatives from the Communities for Climate project. So there are certainly many parallels to your presentation. Before I pass the floor to the next speaker, I see one question in the chat that I think is worth posing to you already now. You might not be permitted to answer it, but I would like to raise it anyway. In the chat, Richard Tufts has asked, how might the Interreg program change from 2028 within the MFF proposals and the national and regional partnership plans?
Yes, many thanks for the questions. You've seen the Commission has published the proposal. So now this proposal is under discussion, of course, with the co-legislators. So nothing is decided at the moment, reason why I cannot answer with extreme certainty. But as you may have seen in the Commission proposal, there is the proposal of having, together with the national and regional partnership plans, also an Interreg plan. So this is where we are at with the Commission proposal. Then it is to be seen, of course, with the co-legislators, how the negotiations will advance on what we call post 27. So thank you very much for your question and also interest in the Interreg programs.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. It will continue to be monitored, I'm sure, by the participants as well as by us at AEIDL. So thank you. I'd like to pass the floor next to Dr. David Martin Ferge, who is the project lead of the Tiszamente energy community in Hungary. So, David, you are a legal expert specialized in EU and national energy law with over a decade of experience in renewable energy, energy communities, and network industry regulation. You are the managing owner of FDM IUS Legal Office, where you advise on power purchase agreements, microgrid regulations, energy storage integration, and permitting procedure for innovative energy projects across the CE region. Previously, he worked with leading Hungarian and international law firms, providing counsel on electricity and natural gas markets, aggregation models, and regulatory compliance. You've also supported municipalities, companies, and energy communities in implementing sustainable and cost-efficient energy solutions. And so you are really the perfect speaker for us today, considering the wealth of speaking engagements you've had and expertise you've provided also in regard to regulatory frameworks and other matters related to the innovative legal models pertaining to energy. Can I give you the floor and we will proceed with your PowerPoint. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. David Ferge, and I'm attorney at law and legal advisor to the Tiszamente energy community in Hungary. It's a real pleasure to speak here today at the European Local Innovation Forum among colleagues and partners. What I would like to share with you today is not a legal or investment theory. It is an example of action of 8 municipalities in eastern Hungary who decided to take their energy future into their own hands and shape it. Okay. The story of Tiszamente energy community began during the energy crisis. Municipalities faced soaring energy bills, unpredictable contracts, and limited room to act. It became clear that they are together in rural regions and that they shall calculate from the local and to regional level. Therefore, the local mayors organized data, knowledge, capacity, and a joint system. The collective decision has been made. They created a community-based response to local energy challenges, one that would combine technical, legal, and social innovation. Could you please next slide, please? As an advisor, I always recommend to my clients to view energy not only as a technical issue, but as a social and governance issue, especially at a rural level. Altogether, they touch on a field of trust, cooperation, and inclusion, thus directly affecting energy poverty, especially on a local basis. Would you please move to the next slide? Today, Tiszamente, the energy community non-profit limited company, is Hungary's 7th officially registered energy community. As by today, we have altogether 17 such energy communities registered, but it can be expected that they will decrease in number. The established energy community is without external funding. The local contributions are a true bottom-up effort from the lowest point of the legislation from the municipalities. At rural level, the highest level of legal regulation structure can be applied. The founders are 8 municipalities and 2 companies. Would you please move to the next slide? In the background, you can see the star signs, that they are all on the same grid. Technically, it is plausible to manage them on a single microgrid level. The planning is on site of Uis and Margita, where some solar installations are already integrated into the database energy management system. They complete the registered legal structure and constantly evolve on governance rules and data protocols, and launch joint capacity mapping for future projects such as Horizon Life recently. The main needs are to start small, build trust, and scale gradually. A few lessons that stand out is the diversity matters, communities with different sizes, economies, and energy needs make the system more flexible and resilient. Would you please do the next slide, please? Coordination beats technology. Tools and platforms are important, but constant communication among mayors, citizens, and companies is what really makes it work. Here is the on-site picture of Uis and Morgita and the planned energy grid with its phases signed in different colors. Tools and platforms are important, but constant communication among mayors, citizens, and companies is what really makes it work. Resident involvement defines success. People support what they understand and trust. Without citizen ownership, community energy remains an empty phrase. Therefore, the solution of the integration of these elements especially aim to address energy poverty, to grant direct energy production towards those who have not in a big use of it. Planning is everything. Would you please do next slide? Yes. Especially in rural regions, planning is not just about technical drawing, it's about long-term vision and shared responsibility. This work is not without barriers. The regulatory uncertainty, how to classify community generation and sharing, as well as the financing gaps, limited national or EU instruments for early-stage communities, as well as technical limits, data access, metering, and grid integration to the DSO level of metering systems, local diversity, different capacities and interests among municipalities and locals. The pragmatic response would be to make, generate, design, implement, reprint, and reshape through a template-based contract and a shared legal tool, all energy performing contracts at the partners, as well as on a higher national level. The applied mosaic funding approach combines local budgets, EU goals, and in-kind contributions on a higher scale of a cooperation of municipalities. They expect to have a cooperation level between 10 to 100 communities. The deployed energy management system gradually allows learning along the way. The created continuous dialogue with citizens, DSOs, and other energy communities across Europe. And would you please move to the next slide? Yes. The legal experiment becomes a real governance innovation. Here in the pictures, you can see the mayors and the establishment of the company. The project is cooperated by Citizens for Climate and the CLR2, as well as the Demo Plus, Hungary National State aids, and connected to local actions on a European level. C4C brought expert missions and visibility, helping us identify new funding paths. CLR2 gives us tools to tackle energy poverty and citizen-led renovation. The Demo Plus will provide the possibility for the future to have a real-time metering, a CO2 data dashboard, and basis for transparent reporting. Together, this created, they shall have a data-driven community governance, in which decisions can be made based on evidence and not on assumptions or pre or post elements. Recommendations for scaling community energy are regulatory clarity. All the national sharing guidelines need to be based on real data exchange and free access of these at the DSO level for energy communities. Dedicated funding, this could mean a minor state element of funding from 50 to 150,000 euros, just to see whether there is feasible or even really to plan the ongoing grid elements for the benefit of the municipality. Policy integration, the national climate actions should be also on the basis of the energy communities be planned. If these steps happen, energy communities could have the position to really move forward from pilot to status to policy instruments, from experiment to the backbone of energy transition. To the next slide, please. Yes. Between 2025 and 2030, Tiszamente plans to launch overviews, citizen participation, and energy poverty programs, expand its membership with more municipalities and small medium entities, deploy energy storage and smart grid integration, to build a replicable microgrid model adaptable across Central and Eastern Europe on a much higher and broader scale. The long-term visions are simple: local energy security with a low energy cost, with a stronger community resilience. And not to use energy just as a goal, it is also to use proper democratic values and elements of discussion. To conclude, the Tiszamente story is not about a region or only one project. It's also about the possibility to rescale it on a higher level. Therefore, I must confess that all participants hereby invited to join them and write to the person whom you see to fit, and that they are really open to get into any exchange tools or get to on a better scale of local innovation in a European reality level. So we thank you very much in their name, and that was all what we actually planned now to submit to you. Thank you very much for your listening.
Thank you so much for that presentation. It definitely flags some of the dilemmas that are present when energy communities are trying to, first of all, set themselves up and to expand. But it also showcased quite some valuable examples of how you came up with innovative approaches to circumvent some of the challenges. And what it also reminds me is that I failed to mention at the very start that we will indeed be sharing the PowerPoint presentations with all of you, so you can access the details that both Delia and Dr. David Martin Ferge have included in their presentations. So if we could move now to our next speaker, Belén López Tárraga. You pronounce it properly, I apologize. But you will be presenting the Energy para el Pueblo in Spain and Portugal in the Douro region, the project that you carried out as the project lead within Communities for Climate. So, Anna, since 2021, you've been part of the technical team of the Douro EGTC, so the energy community there, a European entity responsible for carrying out different initiatives and projects to promote territorial development along the Spanish-Portuguese border. During this time, you actively participated in the development of an energy community, and this is what you'll present today. But to speak a little bit more to your background, you have recently defended your PhD on the Arctic territory and European policies. You've published various articles and books and chapters in books, I should say, and your research focuses on the study of public policies aimed at territories with low population density, as well as actions designed to reverse the situation. So you're particularly interested in energy and food transition as thematic areas, and the Arctic and the Spanish-Portuguese border as study territories. You've also worked as an adjunct professor in the Department of Geography at the University of Salamanca, where you are currently a member of the research group Territory, Innovation and Development. We're so honored to have you here today. So thank you, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Shannon, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure for me and for my entity to share this time and to share our experience in this project. So Energia para el Pueblo, so Energy for People in English, is a project that brings renewable energy and social innovation to the heart of rural communities in Spain and Portugal. And over the next 50 minutes, I tell you who we are, what we do, and we're learning about here and what we're learning in the Communities for Climate project. So if you are can pass to the next slide, please. Thank you. So how we are, AGC Douro is a cross-border cooperation entity until about 200 municipalities located along the Douro River basin on both sides of the Spain and Portugal border. They are mostly rural areas where a small population, often described as sacrificed territories, because they've suffered the population and economic neglect. But we prefer to see them differently, and we call the territories of resilience, place full of culture, identity, and social capital. And our mission is simple but ambitious: to turn challenges into opportunities through Energia para el Pueblo, energy for the people. We are provide even the most remote and aging regions can be pioneers of European fair and inclusive energy transition. So if you can pass the next slide, please. Okay, so Energia para el Pueblo projects is our flagship initiative. It's not just one project, but rather a network of action designed to transform how energy is produced, managed, and sold locally. It includes ELIF Energy, our community energy cooperative, which allow municipalities and citizens to jointly invest in renewable installation, collective self-consumption system, so that households and produce and use their own green electricity, sustainable mobility projects, linking clean energy to electric vehicles and shared transport, and our community transformation office, a space that provides technical, legal, and administrative support to help municipalities join the transition. Each of these pillars fit into a shared vision, energy sovereignty for rural citizens. So first of all, Community Transformation Office. Let's look a little closer at the Community Transformation Office. This is a real cornerstone of our approach. The idea came from a simple observation. So many rural towns want to transition to renewable energy, but they don't know how to start. And in this office, we work as one-step shop, offering personal guidance, training session, and help navigating regulation or funding opportunities. It's where technical knowledge meets social empowerment. Over time, it's also become a community hub, a meeting point for citizens, local governments, and small business. And most important, it's helped people for being passive consumers to become active energy citizens who understand, produce, and manage their own energy. So, and then we have shared mobility. So now energy transition isn't only about electricity generation, it's also about how we move. And that's why we've included shared mobility in our strategy. So in rural areas, transport is often one of the most biggest social and economic barriers. People need to travel long distance for work, education, healthcare. Public transport is limited too. Through pilot project, we introduced our electric vehicles and community transport systems. So we are now implementing this part of the project. And these initiatives reduce emission, lower cost for residents, and stress social ties. In the end, shared mobility connects sustainable and social inclusion, and it is a way to make clean energy tangible in everyday life. Sorry. Next slide, please. So why we joined Communities for Climate? So our participation in this project network was a natural next step, and we wanted to both share our experience and learn from others across Europe. And this European platform allows local initiatives to exchange good practice, receive training, and start cooperation with partners facing similar challenges. Through it, we'll build new partnerships, improve our governance model, and so that rural areas can be protagonists in Europe's climate policies, not just beneficiaries. And it's also helping us to connect local citizens to a broader sense of belonging. They see themselves as part of a European climate movement, which is very motivating. After several years of work, we brought some important lessons. First, the real strengths. Next slide, please. So first, these lessons, the real strength of the transitions lie in local cooperation with a trust among municipality citizens and local entrepreneurs, no projects last. Second, energy education is crucial. People can only take ownership of the transition if they understand how energy systems work and how their actions matter. Third, innovation is not just technological, social innovation, how governance, participation, and financing is what truly challenges rural dynamic. And fourth, European network amplify local action. By joining forces, a small project can achieve much greater visibility and political impact. And next slide, please. Future challenge, of course, we have a lot of future challenges in this way. And first of all, consolidate citizen participation, keeping people engaged once the first installation are complete. Second, ensuring financial sustainability, balancing community ownership with the long-term economic viability of the project. Third, simplify the administrative processes. The bureaucracy can be overwhelming for a small town, and so we work to translate complex procedures into practical steps. Fourth, making the energy transition part of everyday life, not a special project, but something that happen naturally in how people live, move, and consume. And finally, we are working to expand our network alliance because the challenges of climate change can only be solved collectively. And next slide, please. To closing, to wrap up, I like to leave you with one simple message. The energy transition will only be fair it is shared. At ECTC, we believe that rural areas don't have to wait for solutions to come from the outside. They can create them from within with knowledge, cooperation, and a bit of courage, and community can transform the way we think about energy and about ourselves. Thank you so very much for the invitation and for having me. And if you have question, text on the chat and I can reply you. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Anna. Really, really inspirational. I particularly enjoyed the slide that says rural pride as a driver of sustainability. I think there's definitely truth to that. I see there are some questions in the chat, but I won't take those questions now. Instead, I'm going to pass the floor to our next colleague, Antonia Proika from REScoop.eu, who will facilitate the discussion. So she can take some time to answer those questions or to address those questions in the chat. So Antonia, you are a renewable energy expert. You collaborated with us in the Communities for Climate project, and now you're focusing on different projects such as SHINE to equip local and regional authorities with the skills and tools needed to maximize opportunities and support community energy, or even the Sparkle project, which has the aim of creating a sustainable planning and resilience knowledge learning environment. So the floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Shannon. Thank you for the invitation actually to be here today. I am happy to be actually asking some of the questions following the presentations that we had earlier today. I work for REScoop.eu, the European Federation of Energy Communities, and it's a core of our vision to really support the initiatives that develop on the ground, that emerge on the ground, in order to develop new projects and really manage to reach their ambitions. We're also, of course, wishing to support the development of new initiatives. And in the context of the Communities for Climate, we were happy that we were able to indeed support the kickstart, let's say, of some initiatives from the ground. So again, if you would go back to the Mentimeter, you can see also in the chat, there is the link, or you can scan the QR codes on the screen. You might actually have it still open from the previous attempt. What is the biggest renewable energy issue? This is what we would like to ask you. What is the biggest renewable energy issue where you live? Okay, we see live the responses, that's good. The lack of enabling framework is indeed challenging. What about the issue of grids? What about access to the market? We talk about inclusion. We talk about diversity. What I see energy poverty on one of the questions, one of the answers, suggested answers. Let's give some time for the people to respond. Okay, I see that actually okay, people still respond. Capacity building needed for energy communities. Seeing as the highest, let's say, challenge. Energy poverty, as we discussed. I mentioned already the lack of enabling framework, little access to the energy market, lack of funding, we heard. Would anybody of the participants of today's webinar would like to take the floor and actually share the particular challenge that they have faced when it comes to the capacity building, for instance, need that they face? I'm happy to discuss because, in fact, I should maybe say that my work focuses exactly on the capacity building, how we can indeed support citizens in being able to properly participate in this energy transition. Maybe somebody could take the lead and answer this. Patrick, please take the floor.
Yeah. I was juggling things there, so apologies for being late to join. The capacity building issue, I think, is really important. You're probably aware of the fact that there is a kind of a manifesto going around. It came out of the Covenant of Mayors for having extra staff. You know, a lot of people who work in local government find themselves overwhelmed. There are too many change agendas happening. And also the landscape is extremely complicated. If you're operating at a local government level, if you want to tap into, say, cohesion funding, all of the programs that were mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, it's very hard because the European Commission communicates with national bodies, and generally the national bodies are probably understaffed, and there isn't much outreach to the regions. It's very hard to connect with them and to get a budget line on the big funding requests. And this is something that we're trying to do in a project that I'm in, where we're working with some local governments, and we're trying to encourage them to pick up the phone. You know, it's really as simple as that. And we're trying to use AI tools as well to facilitate the task for them. But there really is an issue on the one hand, maybe a lack of leadership as well, a need for technical assistance, because if you can't do it in-house, at least you could get maybe some local consultants to do the work for you.
Yeah.
But even assuming all of that is possible, you still need an awareness on behalf of local government that these are the steps to take. So I think there's a huge area issue to be dealt with in terms of capacity building, and in particular for people in local government.
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Indeed, I recognize the issues that you mentioned. Shannon mentioned in the beginning that my work focuses exactly on this, training, let's say, local authorities, civil servants, when it comes to the support and the development of energy communities. So feel free also to actually take a look at the resources that we have been producing. Now, I fully agree with what you mentioned, that we should be actually going in two different levels. We should be supporting, at least we should give the capacity building to train the staff that or like the people, so that we can eventually have the organizations in place to have the ability to tackle the challenge, because we're talking about here energy communities as really there to tackle the energy challenge. But at the same time, along with this capacity building, indeed the need for some financial support should be covered, because as you rightfully stressed, in case in many situations the initiatives are actually understaffed. So they should be at least able to hire someone to be able to offer this particular support to get an external. Thanks a lot. Thanks for your comment.
Can
Yes?
I just wait? Thanks, Antonia. That's very helpful.
Yeah.
An observation I've made is that most of the regions I've been dealing with have been local rural regions. And when I asked them, you know, what are the programs or how are you getting the resources to finance your action plans and things like that, they default to the leader program. And sometimes I get the impression that they've been set up simply to spend money, and they don't see it as part of their job to find the money to finance their own initiatives. And in particular, in LEADER, which I think is a great program in principle, there's a blind spot because LEADER finances pilot projects. And if you have a successful pilot, you know, I ask people, you know, tell me about your projects. And they say, oh, we have a wonderful pilot. And I say, what are you going to do to scale it up? And they look at me as though I'm mad. This is not our job. What the hell are you wasting time and money doing a pilot project if you're not thinking about scaling up in the case of success? But at that really basic level, you know, people don't see it as part of their job to find the resources to finance the plans that they have developed with all their local engagement, cinema in many cases, because the engagement leads to frustration if there's no follow-up action.
Totally. That's a very good point again, that indeed we've seen that a lot of initiatives, let's say, focus on piloting, but then as you say, like what happens next? And that's what I mentioned in the beginning, that we're happy to actually support the initiatives that may have started now with a fresh idea or a first project, let's say. So how do we take indeed the next step? How do we manage to indeed scale up to reach more people in our community, to maybe try to prepare different projects? Because what we also see in the community energy sector is that a lot of initiatives start with solar projects, but then slowly we see more and more communities. Why not start like a heat project, like heating and cooling is another like area that would be, again, if we go back to the why do we do this, the challenge, the big ambition is to actually try to reduce the fossil fuels that we're consuming to cover our energy needs. And again, there the heating and cooling area is also very important. Thank you very much. I will now see if, I don't know if Richard wants to also bring the question himself. Otherwise, I can read it out. Okay, so David, then can I raise the question to you, direct the question to you? What measures would help your project to scale up?
Mainly about monetary and budgetary elements to set up the proper grid planning tools. What I mean under that are the PV elements, panels, in the capacity of 300 kilowatt peaks, batteries in the capacity of at least 500 kilowatt peaks, as well as two elements to EV charging to equalize e-mobility. These are the necessary tools which are requested to operate at least on a microgrid operated level. So these tools would be really essential. These is called a standard term, and the usage of this standard term will be replicated in all as best as we can in the rural areas of Hungary.
I would like to repeat the question that I had to you, David, about the fact that we're here today talking about the local innovation forum. And you mentioned in your introductory presentation that the issue of governance was something that was key, let's say, in your process. I would like to ask you to highlight, to share with us, if you could, what would be the most important, let's say, innovation when it comes to the governance element in the context of your community in Hungary?
I believe that there is a different structure in the energy system regarding to energy communities, which Hungary did developed in the recent. Much more we have definitions which are incorporated in other definitions. So we have such kind of submerged definitions like renewable energy community, specific one. These are merely to be adaptized on those microgrid levels, which are related and on under one so-called TRAFO system, so electricity short grid. The main question is how to deal with such as 8 municipalities on different grids, grid operators, and manage what can be achieved. So therefore, they manage a whole management system, and they meter their usage, as well as they dispute therefore with the DSOs on calculations and loss on the grid. But also they are establishing in a virtual market pool in which they can therefore access to higher bidders on the trading platform with electricity traders to receive as whole as a bunch one nomination, so one price for one unit. Yes, and this whole legal tool as it is needs to be studied for those who are not dealing with it, and that takes a lot of time. So yes, education for me too.
So we need to, if I try to repeat what you say in my own terms, I would say that what I understand is that in the context of the community that you have established, the main innovation, let's say, is this kind of, we talk about cross-border initiatives, cross-urban, cross-rural, but now we're talking about the social crossing technological innovation, in fact, where you, and the legal element, you had to juggle around, let's say, different pieces to be able to have the community, let's say, operate the way that it operates today. You described earlier about the technological elements. You mentioned the different legal landscape that enable you to actually develop the governance in place. And when it comes to the citizens, you mentioned that you stressed the education. Can you maybe give us one sense, let's say, one example of some feeling when it comes to one of the last activities that you organized for the local community, like a particular event that you had organized, maybe? What is what I'm asking, because it would be nice for people that are with us today to get, this kind of feeling. What could they do to increase, let's say, the interest of their communities to join and empower themselves, let's say, to become an active participant of the energy transition?
Thank you very much for the question. So the basic question is, what is the scale? What needs to be supplied, and how much units do I have to supply them? So that's the real technical questions. What is needed? How much is needed from the on what scale? On what grid? That's the basic question. I mean, under operational question. Besides that, the main element is also at the municipalities itself. Therefore, the so-called national regulation is in the hand of the municipalities. In Hungary, the municipalities do have a really historical point of view related to their economic activities. They have a really reduced position to receive any amounts out of their activity as acting as economic players. it's really different to other nations. And therefore, in Hungary, it is really limited for the municipalities to receive any direct bank financing for projects which are of common interest. But also this has an effect on so-called energy poverty. To really emphasize what's the scale of energy poverty on this landscape, there are different tools which are already implemented and in use. Such a tool is the latest reports on the local scale on energy poverty. There's a higher 120 question element sheet upon based the mayor of Újszeg Margita, Mr. Csetneki Csaba, is in the position to directly see what the affected people, who the affected people are and who the affected points are on the grid, where electricity should be delivered for at least for a lowered price. And such surveys had been recently closed. He also already published his paper on that, the mayor, Mr. Csetneki. So in about 2 weeks ago, the mayor had already a publication, and about 4 weeks ago, he conducted his survey on energy poverty. That's the latest which we achieved, and we hope to meet up other energy communities next week in between the 13th and 16th on the week of Regions Week in Brussels.
Okay, thank you very much, because this is exactly another question that I had about the diversity and what action you take. So Shannon, maybe I can give the floor back to you.
Sure, thanks for that, Antonia. And David, also thanks to you. I think the point that you were just raising is essential. So in terms of conducting a survey to understand what is the reality on the ground, and this actually brings us as a connection to what our webinar last week addressed. This was a webinar on water resource management, and one of the main findings was you have to really understand the reality on the ground in order to develop solutions that are going to be useful for the communities, for the citizens. And so it also implies the importance of co-creating solutions and having conversations with the different actors to come up with the strategies that's going to best fit them. So that's vital. We've talked about so many other elements as well in terms of the funding, in terms of the capacity building. But I think if there aren't further questions or input from the other participants, then we could also pass the floor to Claire Jordan, our Managing Director, who is meant to give the closing words and give you some further information for future webinars. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you everybody today for joining us. I hope you have learned. I thought the presentations were very insightful and informative. There was a lot of very interesting messages, I think, for everyone today. To try and wrap it up, I mean, first I want to remind everyone that this C4C project, the Communities for Climate project, had 13 local communities with a focus on renewable energy. And what we found generally from this project was that the lessons learned were mainly centered around social innovations that make the energy transition more community-owned and participatory. So that was an interesting finding, and I think the presentations today very much supported this. As we heard from Dr. David Ferge, energy is not only a technical issue, but also a social and governance issue. So today we talked about, well, the importance of enabling frameworks in national legislation, and sometimes that is a matter of member states properly ensuring the transposition and implementation of relevant EU regulations. We also saw that energy communities and smaller operators can face disproportionate barriers to grid access and to funding, which can complicate or slow down their action. And very importantly, the need for capacity building was flagged several times today as particularly crucial, it came out as the top challenge within our group today when we did the poll. And so on that topic, well, such capacity building can include, for example, technical and legal assistance, really tailored to the needs of energy communities and their operations. We also heard a very interesting example from Ana Belén López, the leader of the Energia para el Pueblo initiative. She said that a cornerstone of this cross-border energy initiative was the Community Transformation Office. And that office played multiple roles in connecting people together, but also boosting the knowledge of key actors and citizens. So this concept of knowledge improvement and also energy education, which we talked a lot about today, seems to be very, very central to the success of energy initiatives, energy communities in particular. And also, I can quote another energy community from the C4C project. They said that by aligning the interests of the private sector, educational institutions, municipalities, and civil society, they managed to set up a framework that would ensure long-term cooperation and a shared ownership of the energy transition. Other things that we talked about today, I think an important lesson was that sometimes it's important to start small, build trust, and scale gradually. Scale up is definitely a challenge, a widespread challenge, but this importance of having a long-term vision and not going after quick wins was something that came out, I think, today. And it's really this I think this patience that is required, the long-term vision underpinned by shared responsibility, which is a guarantee of success, rather than trying to scale up too fast, for example. Maybe a word to say again, to remind what we heard from Mrs. Delia Bonsignore, that there is currently an open call specifically for cross-border energy communities. So she flagged a very helpful handbook that has been published recently, but also invited cross-border energy communities to respond to the call with a submission deadline on the 24th of November. And maybe I will close here by quoting another one of our key speakers today, who said that European networks amplify local action. And this very much relates to our ambition here at AEIDL to really help create the space for this sort of EU-level networking among local initiatives. And that's the spirit of our forum, as you know, ELIF. So we very much encourage you to continue to follow our activities in this regard. We will continue to try and amplify the voices of local initiatives and help them network together, exchange good practices and challenges. And as you can see on the screen, we have a third webinar in this series foreseen in November, on the 18th of November, and this will really focus on circular economy and will feature circular economy initiatives from the C4C project, which we foresee will be very, very interesting as well. So I hope I have said everything. There is an evaluation form which we will send you, and you can fill out to express your feedback for today's webinar. Thank you very much indeed again to all our speakers, to the team who helped organize this webinar today, and to all of you, the participants, and we hope to see you on this platform again very, very soon.